World War I saw the emergence of a new model of medical rehabilitation for disabled soldiers: work. The progressive work ethic would wholly pervade medical ideology, curative practices, and even the prosthetics of wounded men. And they would require entire new facilities and trained occupational specialists dedicated to rebuilding maimed soldiers and restoring them to the labor market. The progress of these extensive rehabilitation efforts was closely recorded by medical photographers employed by the Army Medical Department. But the photographs are not just evidence of progressive rehabilitative medical practices. They reveal how work manifests in every detail of rehabilitation, even the tooling of prosthetics. They are propagandist messages that attempt to sell the idea of work as redemptive and curative, as a means to restore soldiers to their manhood through productivity. But they also seem to offer a glimpse into the history of photography and of the developing early modernist eye moving away from studio portraits and painterly style to linear abstractions that sever the subject from the photograph. Until the end of the 19th century, military service was honored with a generous lifetime pension plan for soldiers who were permanently disabled in the line of duty. The pension system operated on the assumption that soldiers had proven their patriotic worth, and the country owed them a debt of gratitude. Before the U.S. entry into World War I, however, the unprecedented number of retiring Civil War soldiers was straining resources, triggering an economic response to the pension system and subsequently the treatment of disabled soldiers. Historian Beth Linker in War's Waste, Rehabilitation in World War I America argues that progressive reformers believed that the government could and should rebuild war cripples, curing them of their disabilities so that veterans of the First World War would make a speedy return to work and rely on their wage earning capacity rather than on government pensions. The reformation of the pension system would be based primarily on the work ethic. Disabled soldiers would be restored to productivity through work. The War Risk Insurance Act provided for rehabilitation and re-education of all disabled soldiers. The program relied predominantly on the Army Medical Department, who took the lead in implementing the program, extensively documenting it through the use of photography and recording it in 15 volumes entitled The Medical Department of the United States Army in World War I. Rehabilitation of soldiers started immediately after surgery, according to a primary source periodical, Carry On, a magazine on the reconstruction of disabled soldiers and sailors. After weeks of massage and occupational therapy, such as weaving, typing, or basket weaving, recovering amputees would meet with occupational specialists to determine what kind of work experience they had and what kind of vocations they would like to pursue. Patients' labor aspirations would become the basis for rehabilitation prescriptions. This research will make a close reading of several photographs of rehabilitating soldiers and their prosthetics during World War I from the Otis Historical Archives held at the National Museum of Health and Medicine. These photographs document the rehabilitation model, its ideologies and practices at the Walter Reed General Hospital. The images show amputees fitted with prosthetic arms with tools, or tooled prosthetics. The photographer often focuses on the productive aspect of the rehabilitation, zeroing in on the tool or the work. After developing historical context for the images, this sub-collection of photos will be read through a variety of theoretical lenses in order to draw out themes in an attempt to provide a thick description of the impact of the work ethic on the field of rehabilitative medicine and American culture. In order to place the photographs in the larger historical context, the images will be read using The Work Ethic in Industrial America by Daniel T. Rogers, who illustrates the moralist view of the horrors of idleness and the need for an abundant supply of hirelings, or factory workers, in industrial America. Moreover, Rogers offers a thorough understanding of how the work ethic shaped the policies of the new pension system and its rehabilitation strategies. Work for disabled soldiers was perceived as a curative for all ills. Work would restore manliness and the wounded soldier's ability to participate fully in his own economic success. Indeed, some of the photos can be read as the mechanization of men, to quote Rogers, where tooled prosthetics would allow them to do piecework in factories. Beth Linker's War's Waste and primary sources will delineate the class distinctions that arose in rehabilitation practices. Not all vocations were available to all men, and not all prosthetics were equal. Tooled prosthetics were likely designed for the working class, while sporting prosthetics were made available to the leisure class. Linker also indicates a strong connection between rehabilitation efforts and perceptions of manhood. Work and manliness were strongly intertwined. Close readings of medical photography emerged in the 1960s as academics denounced the careful composition of photos and the posing of subjects, revealing the fraudulence of many medical photographs purporting to be evidentiary. Michel Foucault's The Birth of the Clinic, an Archaeology of Medical Perception, will be used to understand the medical perspective behind the making of the tooled prosthetics photographs. Foucault introduces the medical gaze, a way of looking at the truth of medicine and science that also objectifies and dehumanizes the patient, and that suggests inherent power inequalities. Beth Linker, in her article Shooting Disabled Soldiers, Medicine and Photography in World War I America, challenges the Foucauldian medical gaze as insufficient for understanding the Army Surgeon General's World War I photographs. But a close look at the tooled prosthetics photos shows a focus on work, and where work is the medicine and the subject falls from view, the theory of the medical gaze seems to hold up. Linker rightly argues that the images serve to persuade a skeptical public that the Army's new programs in medical rehabilitation for disabled soldiers provided the best means of veteran welfare. Linker's research, as well as primary source documents, shed light on the propagandist perspective in the making of the images. But Linker also argues that amputations are hidden with pant legs rolled over stumps in an attempt to show recovering soldiers that are rebuilt, restored. Indeed, some of the photos show amputees in unlikely circumstances. However, the photographs of tooled prosthetics from the Reeve collection are highly focused on the amputation and the usefulness of the prosthesis. Here is an unavoidable look at lost limbs made whole and even improved for the labor market. Lastly, the photographs will be read as evidence of an emergent modernist viewpoint in the field of photography. Although the identity of the photographers of the tooled prosthetics sub-collection were not recorded, it seems clear that in focusing on the work, the photographer abandons the traditional composition of early photography. These are not conventional portraits or sweeping landscapes or pictorialist. They are examples of linear proto-modernist photography that go beyond traditional genre or classical themes and explore new points of view and abstraction. The Tooled Prosthetics collection reveals the lasting impact of the work ethic on rehabilitative modern medicine that persists today, from physical therapy to occupational therapy. They portray the disabled veteran's persistent difficulty in reintegrating himself into mainstream culture after amputation, a recurring theme throughout the 20th century. They provide subtle evidence for propagandizing the reformation of the new rehabilitation program and offer a glimpse into the medical gaze of science. And they offer altered viewpoints of a world very much changed by the First World War.